So, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Super Bros podcast. This one is for the bros. This is our very first live episode. And I'm joined by none other than Jaime, the financial enabler. He's got pretty big following on social media. That's actually how I came across his page. Been following him for a couple months now and super excited to have him on the show. Jaime, super happy to have you here, man. It's an honor. Tell us a little bit about who the financial enabler is and what got you to this point. Like, how did you get into all of this in the first place?
So the whole thing, dude, actually it started way back when I first joined the Marine Corps. I realized that I was pretty all right with finance. Funny story, I had a roommate that he didn't have a good enough credit card, right? And I offered as like, hey, I'll help you buy that sound system. I bought the sound system for him. He paid me back, so I was basically his bank. And then I slowly realized, man, I'm pretty good at this stuff. I improved my credit. I bought my house pretty young. And then I slowly started adding into all those skills, right? And it all it changes once I got divorced for the second time. When I got divorced for the second time, I was like, you know what? I want to do something good. And I was running one day and I came up with the idea. It's like, I'm gonna do this idea to start helping people with finances. And after a few months of thinking it through, I was like, you know what? The financial enabler. Let's do that. So I named it the financial enabler, and it blew up. And ever since then, it's been all uphill from there. Yeah, it was just
That's
an idea
awesome,
to have impact with people.
Super cool. So you mentioned that you helped your friend initially. Did you have any background in finance at all, or was this one of those things where it was like, I'm just going to use my common sense and then see where it takes me?
I would say it was just a shot in the dark. Yeah, it was just a shot in the dark. And yeah, that was all. I just took a risk and it worked out. It paid off.
Gotcha. Okay. Real quick before we go any further, can you hear me okay? Am I quiet? You're kind of quiet on your end.
Oh, I hear you. Excellent. Let me
Okay.
see. Is this better?
A little bit. You're just
Yeah,
kind of muffled. I'm not sure.
it's interesting because I have my mic right here. I don't
I
know.
would make sure it's on your default for that.
Yeah, let me double. Maybe.
I had to double check mine for a second.
Yeah, I checked mine. It's good. Maybe I'll speak louder.
I can hear you now.
Yeah.
That works.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so you took a shot in the dark with helping your friend get his credit up. You said he was able to get a car, house.
It started with a sound system, right?
Oh, sound
It
system.
just started with a
Gotcha.
sound system. But then from there, I realized, let's say it was TSP. I bought a house and I realized I can figure this out. I'm pretty good at it. And from then it started building up and how
Gotcha.
I impact people with finances. Like I always liked the credit card game, and I slowly started just adding to it. You know what I mean?
Okay. And then was this like while you were in the military or was it post-military? You mentioned the TSP.
Oh, yeah. So this is all while in the military. My roommate was in the military. It was actually in Japan. Both of my divorces came while I was in the military. So it was a slow growth. And I think it was a time that when I got my second divorce before I started Financial Enabler, it was a time that I felt kind of lost and I wanted to have an impact with people. And that's what caused it. Yeah.
Okay. So did you have like anyone teach you when you were younger, kind of like the building blocks of finance? Was it your parents? Was it somebody else in your life that contributed to that? I know you said it was a shot in the dark, but I think
Yeah.
there's like a certain level of awareness you have to kind of help others.
So I think my family was they didn't teach me any of it. In hindsight, it's
Okay.
funny. I know more about finance than everybody in my family. I think it was more of realizing the opportunities, right? So once I joined the military, I'm the first one ever to join the military in my family. And I think it was just, I was always searching, right? I have this very searching mindset, right? Like I joined the military, I found EOD, I found MARSOC, I found finance. It's like I always have had this desire to improve, to grow, to be better. So I can't say unfortunately, I cannot attribute it to my family. It was purely my self drive, but I think it was also because my parents didn't show me that. Right,
Gotcha.
my parents didn't
Okay.
talk a whole lot about finance. We did not struggle financially. We're not one of those families that struggle financially. So maybe
Right.
it was just like, okay, how do they do that? But man, like even getting the first credit. My mom didn't explain to me how to get a credit card, how to get a house loan. I just
Yeah.
winged it. And it worked out. I've messed up a lot, right? Sold the house
Yeah.
at the wrong time. Learned from that. Bought into the market at the wrong time. Just little things like that.
It's all a process, and I think that's why I was so excited to bring you on, because that's literally who our audience is. It's targeted to people who might have not had that mentorship growing up, and there's just skills that they want to learn but they don't know where to start. So like we're literally building a library of knowledge for folks who have kind of gone to the school of hard knocks, so to speak. So what were some of the first steps that you took when you were trying to learn more? Where did you go to seek out information? And then kind of bring me back to like beginning of being in the Marines. Like how long were you in for? You
Yeah,
said you're former soft, so speaking about that,
yeah.
I know I had a bunch of questions that I just fired at you at once.
No, you're good. So I'm actually still in the Marine Corps.
You
Uh,
are? Okay.
yeah, I
Awesome.
retire in January 31st. So
Congratulations.
I see the light. I'm running. And
Yeah.
I've loved the Marine Corps, and I've said it in other venues that I kind of realized the military is very funny, right? I
Mhm.
was not about it, and then all of a sudden at year 16, it was just like, oh, there it is.
Been in for a long time.
This is really cool, right? I get
Yeah.
why we do the things we do. So it's been
Right.
a really a learning process and coming to love it, right? Uh, but when it came to finance, so I had a financial advisor, and I realized is like he's teaching me some things, but there's not a lot that he knows. So after my second divorce, the first book I read was Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm saying this
Okay.
because that book kind of sparked the interest, and I'll never forget this. I remember reading the book and thinking, if I would have read this book just a month ago, it would have never made sense to me. So it
Right.
was like the right time. But from there,
Right.
had curiosity, right? And I started reading finance books on investing, books on the economy, Ray Dalio. And then slowly I started diving into other books. And then from that, I actually got super fortunate. That was what changed everything. I had a friend of mine, another MARSOC dude. He reached out to me and he's like, "Hey man, I'm working with this wealthy people. I'm showing them shooting, survival, mindset. In turn, they are teaching me how to make money, grow my money, and they were always looking for
Nice.
strategic partners. So I jumped in on it. I jumped in on the opportunity, and this guy really opened my eyes into the world of finance. So it started with curiosity, led to books, led to a mentor. Um, and even in my time in the Marine Corps, I was a big proponent of TSP. I was able to help people with, like leasing cars. Like anybody in SOF, you should probably lease a car and not own it. You're gone so much. So I
Right.
slowly figured out these little tips and tricks, and then I was able to apply to the platform and spread it to the masses.
That's fantastic. I love
Mhm.
that. Um, so you said around year 16, that's when it started to get real for you. You're like, oh, this is actually something I enjoy doing. So
Oh yeah.
up until that point, like talk about, being in that career field and how you came to the conclusion that you wanted to join the Marines in the first place.
So funny. I'll start with the second part. Joining the Marine Corps was kind of funny. I thought I was going to join the Air Force Guard. Then I went to Ecuador, came back, and never heard back from the recruiters. And the Marine recruiter was just like, "Let's get together." And I feel that he kind of bamboozled me into like the meeting,
They
but
always do.
he was really good at his job, and I was like,
Yeah.
maybe I can do this. And dude, I was overweight. I was like, I don't know if I can do this, and I did it, and it worked out. So what's interesting is that my mom then showed me some pictures that like I even cried when I was a little kid, because I wanted a Marine Corps shirt, the old scarlet and gold, and I was like, I'm not
Oh,
leaving
that's
until I get
funny.
this shirt. And I painted my face and all that. So all of these things led to that moment, but I never saw it coming. But when I joined the Marine Corps, I was taking the step by step, 4 year at a time process. I thought it was for school. I didn't know what it was. But
Right.
then once I saw some EOD techs in the Philippines, I was like, I want to try that. I'll let move. And then I was having fun. Then I went to MARSOC and I was still having fun. And then I applied, tried out for some other special units. It didn't work out. So it was slowly like, I'm having a good time. There's no reason to leave. I'm not in a hurry. But I mean, what at year 16, what happened, and I like telling young service members this, is that I didn't see why it was good. I didn't
Mhm.
see why the level of bullshit that we deal with was necessary
Right.
until year 16, that I was like, it just all made sense. Like, I was like, I got the, something as simple as like, this is what we got to do, PCCs and PCIs. I always did them, but I never saw like the multiple layers deep of it. Right.
Right.
And I became, at that point, I believe I was not indoctrinated when I first joined, but at year 16, I was like, I got it. I'll never forget. There's this speech by General Smith, the current commandant,
Uh-huh.
and he's talking about like our ribbons, right? Why we should put it in an eighth of an inch. And he's like, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, listen, guys, like, if an infantryman tells a pilot that he has to take this direction to drop bombs, and the pilot is 2 degrees off, he's wrong. So this is
Right.
why we teach Marines this level of detail. And it was like, finally, after so many years, somebody was able to explain it in a very rational sense, right?
Mhm.
Which they always say it is the basics, trust us, but like, you believe in it, right? But once you convey it, then it became mine, right? I owned up to it. And the other part is that, being in EOD and in MARSOC, I was surrounded by incredible men and women. And I was like, I could tell that, how do I compete at this level, right? Every day, because every day is competition, right? Like every day. And I love that. And I think that coming into finance is the same thing. There's a bunch of go-getters, people of high caliber, the military doesn't have a monopoly on leadership. There's great leaders everywhere. And I wanted to compete. And on top of that, I feel like I have a cheat book, right? A cheat code,
Right.
because I feel that we go about life dealing with finance, but once you understand finance, you're like, oh, this thing's no big deal. I understand why things are happening. So that's kind of what I try to teach people. It's like, I don't want you to get into finance. I want you to get to your goals and dreams. But once you understand how to play the game, all of a sudden the game doesn't feel rigged, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I know you mentioned, you had that moment when it kind of made sense and someone was able to explain it in a way that you could understand it. And I totally, I relate to that too, because I didn't have any perspective on the military when I initially
Mhm.
joined. And it was really hard for me to kind of get behind like that indoctrination they put you through. And they're like, oh, go to Ranger school, do this, do that. And I'm like, I just want to do my job and do
Yeah.
my time and see how it goes. And now I think slowly but surely, as I get exposed to more things, I'm starting to see like there's a lot of cool things that are available to us as service members. There's
Yeah.
a lot of amazing job opportunities that come with it, and there's a lot of benefits that they don't tell you about when you initially get in.
Yeah.
Um, how
What
many?
what's your what your army? What was your job?
So I'm still in actually. I'm
Cool.
a logistics officer right now, and then I'm currently working with Special Forces Unit.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'll
Yep.
tell this, I'm gonna throw a shout out to the army. Like, I love the Marine Corps. There's things that we can do that nobody else can do. But I'll tell anybody, if you want opportunities, just go to the army. Like, I met this guy. He was an EOD tech, went to an SMU, and now flies Apaches. I was like, you could never fathom that in the Marine Corps. Like, so it's
Right.
so freaking cool. So I really, that's what I like about the army. You want opportunities? Go to the army.
And that's the crazy part is like people don't even tell you half of the opportunities that are out there. And then it's like, okay, how many different Reddit forums do I have to go through to figure out what I want my job to be?
Yeah.
So it's like, I saw the opportunity to be around the soft community and I was like, hey, I'm gonna fight tooth and nail for this. And, I've worked my ass off for like a year and a half to just get my foot in the door. And then, I got lucky and I'm really happy about where I'm at. But,
Mhm.
for someone who's kind of grinding on their military journey right now, is there any advice that you would give them like early on? I know you've mentioned TSP a couple times, but it could even be just outside of financial advice. Like
Mm.
it didn't click for you until 16 years in. So, what would you tell your younger self if you could?
I would tell them that it's supposed to suck.
Okay.
It's supposed to be terrible, right? But it's almost like it's almost to draw a contrast, right?
Right.
Because once you accept that it's supposed to be terrible, then you're like, oh, there's a reason for this. I may not understand it, but it's supposed to be, right? So
Hmm.
once we accept that, then there's a deeper understanding. And I think that anybody that's been to conflict knows it, but until that moment happens, you do not get it, right? So the more we tell ourselves it's supposed to be this is this story. How do I make this crappy moment the best for me? So it's just a change of mindset, right? And
Yeah.
when it comes to that's number one. Number two is control your destiny. I am really big on controlling your destiny. So many service members are like, oh, I want orders. Where do you want to go? I don't know. I would like to, blah. But they don't
Right.
realize that the more proactive that you are, the better you control your destiny. Like to this, I am very fortunate. The only duty station that I did not intentionally want was my second one, which was North Carolina, which was fine. But after that, I was like, they gave us a list and I wanted Hawaii. I got Hawaii. When I went to MARSOC, I went to California. I went to California. Then I
Right.
saw I knew that we have to do with it in the confines, right? I could tell that somebody was going to tell some EOD techs to leave. And I was like, I'm going to leave on my terms. I'm not going to let them tell me where I'm going. I really didn't want to go to 29 Palms. So I was like, I want to go to Japan. This is what I want to do. So I made sure to control my destiny. And on the financial side, I would say TSP is awesome, but it's not the end all be all.
Right.
And Navy Fed and USA are awesome, but they have a lot of flaws. So the more that
Hmm.
we dive into it, the better we're going to do. And this is the example I can tell anybody. A lot of people come to me as that, well, I don't know anything about finance. And I'm like, yeah, but you're in incredible shape. Where did you learn that? Well,
Right.
YouTube and Instagram and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what's the
Exactly.
difference, bro? It's the same thing.
Exactly.
The skill necessary to get that fit is the same to go become really wealthy. You just have to
Right.
care. But
Right.
until that point, most people don't care. So that's kind of I would say those would be the biggest things I would tell a service member.
Okay. Yeah, I think it definitely takes something dramatic to make people care about creating their destiny, right? And
Yeah.
that's perfect advice. Like for me, what got me on my fitness journey and really just kind of that journey of self-development and what led to making this show was like, hey, I'm tired of where I'm at. I'm tired of not knowing things. Like I want to talk to people that know what they're talking about and I want to share it with others too so that
Yeah.
they don't have to repeat the same mistakes. Um, I think a
Mhm.
lot of people they think that they're stuck because the army or the Marines or whatever branch they're in has just told them to be there because it's
Yeah.
on their orders. They think that
Yeah.
they're stuck. They think that's how it's supposed to be, and no one ever really tells them any differently because it's just how the system works. But
Yeah.
if you're going through that right now and you don't like where you're at, like take active steps to change it. You can always reclass. You can always change your job. You can always commission to become an officer. You could be a warrant officer. I know plenty of people that have gone that path, or they find a niche job that nobody knows about. And
Hmm.
I mean, your happiness is predicated on how much you try, I think.
And I think that to your point, the reason that I think a lot of people are unhappy with the military is because they have let the military control their destiny,
Exactly.
right? Like, and I'll say this and I'll say it 100 times. The military is not supposed to care about your finances. They really
No.
shouldn't even care about us getting out. Like the fact that
Right.
we have TRS is wild to me. And people are like,
Hmm.
well, what do you mean about that? I was like, go get a job in Walmart. What are they going to do when you quit? Bye.
Yeah.
Go get a job in a top firm, like Deloitte, KPMG, whatever. If you quit, they're going to be like, bye. But
Yeah.
somehow in the military, we're asking for a almost prison level reintegration.
Right.
And it's like, guys, just own up to it. If you own up to it, all the information's out there. Like, is the VA complicated? Sure. But the moment that we decide to own our destiny, everything changes. You're like, cool, I need to figure
Yeah,
this out.
it is funny how they kind of cripple fully grown adults into the transition phase. It's like, oh, I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to do with my life. And it's like, all you have to do is think about it for like 30 minutes, really. Just have
Yeah.
an honest conversation with yourself. Are you happy with doing this? Um, and yeah, I don't think that, I think we're in a position now as a whole with the military where it's like, they almost feel like they have to try to retain people because the standards have dropped so much. And hopefully we see a shift in the future with the caliber of soldier that we're bringing in. Because I know that there's a lot of really, really great people that could
Oh,
make an
dude.
impact, but they're choosing not to because the direction that the military has gone for the past few years is not an ideal one. So I
No, no,
think
no.
that I think we'll see a shift. Hopefully we do, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think that to that is like once people start realizing what they need to do to make sure that they are choosing their destiny how they want it to be, then they'll have a great time. You know,
Definitely.
they'll be able to say, okay, I want to be this wealthy. What do I need to do? Uh, like you said, odds are the military doesn't suck. There's a high chance that your job sucks. And there's a really high chance
Exactly.
that your unit sucks. So if your job
Right.
sucks and your unit sucks, just change or be patient or leave, right? But saying that this is the Army sucks, the Marine Corps sucks, it's not entirely true, right? And for that, at the same time, you can go to any special forces group and they're still going to complain about it. You can go to any
Right.
SEAL team and they're still going to complain about it, right? It doesn't matter. But if you decide to like, how do I make this time better? Everything it's all super. It's great. It's a great time, and the amount of opportunities that we have, education is just out of control.
Absolutely. Um, let's talk about your time with EOD. What's been your favorite experience so far, and what are some of the opportunities that you've seen that people just aren't taking advantage of right now?
So my favorite time, I would say, was two. I had an unfortunate time in Marsoc. I didn't get any. I got one combat deployment, and it was very quiet.
Hmm.
But my favorite time, I would say, was when I got to go to Australia. I got to do their EOD, their soft EOD course, which was awesome. To this point, I'm sure that I'm somebody can dispute it, but I still believe I'm the only American to ever do their soft EOD course, which is
Okay.
which is really cool. Last I spoke to those guys, they said that I am. So it's a really good time. My second time was when I left Marsoc and I went back to conventional, and I got to take. We went to Korea, we went to Philippines with the section that I have. It was like 9 guys, and it was freaking awesome. And the reason it was awesome is that I believe that in SOF, we create this environment that things are going to happen. It's
Hmm.
supposed to be a good time. We're going on this trip. We're going to have a great time.
Right.
But when I went to Korea and Philippines with these kids, they were in conventional. They thought it was going to suck. And I was like, we're going to figure it out. And I slowly figured out like how to bend some rules, how to get away with things, like totally legal. But I was able to do wild things just
Right.
because I was a little bit more creative. And dude, I had a great time with those guys. I'll never kind of a funny story, and it shows like testament to the military. So I was in the Philippines, and you know how like the Marine Corps is super picky about uniforms, right?
Yeah.
I knew that if I put on this ball cap, the sergeant major and the CO would lose it. It was a ball cap that was given to me by the Filipinos, right? I was like,
Right.
they're gonna lose it if they see me and the dudes with this. And I was like, you know what? I bet I can beat them to the punch. So I grabbed the hat and I go up to Sergeant Major and the CO in the morning. They are fresh out of their tents. And I was like, hey, sir, Sergeant Major, I wanted to come to you guys. Would you guys mind if while we're at the range and at the range only, my section and I, we wore these ball caps with the Filipinos. They gave them to us and they asked us to wear them. I just want to make sure that it was cool with you guys. I'll never forget this CO and Sergeant Major as a Lieutenant Colonel. They look at each other and they're like, "You're asking us?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, of course. Like, you guys run this place." And they're like, "Yeah, go ahead." And that was it. That was that. Like, no fuzz. I went down, we put on the ball caps, nobody cared. But it was like, I told them, like, they knew that I wasn't trying to bend the rules. They knew
Right.
that I had a purpose and it was intentional. And they were like, "Yeah, knock yourself out, bro." And I was like, "This is great." And I walked back to the guys and they're like, "How did you just convince a sergeant major to let you wear a ball cap?" I was like, "Dude, just ask."
Just
What
asked.
what is he gonna say? No? He could say no. I already went in knowing that he could say no. And we
Yeah.
won. So
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good. I was just gonna say, I think it's funny. Like you can get a lot of different things in life just by asking, and like I think deep down, everybody wants to be the guy that people like.
Yeah.
So, like if they know that you respect them and where they're coming from, like they're more than likely gonna help you
Yeah.
out.
And to that, like I've gone to life now expecting I expect people to do their jobs. Is the sergeant major and the CO's job to tell me, a gunny, to shut up and not wear it? That is his job, right? And that's
Right.
fine. But if like you said, right, he wants to be liked and he wants to be in control. So I gave him the control. But people forget that you can lead up. That's what I like calling lead up. If I'm a good leader and I show responsibility, why wouldn't they say no? It's not
Exactly.
like, and I gave him even parameters. When I teach guys, it's like, you control your destiny. If you get the parameters and you show responsibility and intentionality, dude, most COs and sergeant majors are going to let you do almost anything.
Almost anything. That's
Yeah.
right. So, what was your initial entry into the Marine Corps like? Like coming all the way up from
Yeah.
very bottom. Talk about that. Talk about your journey, man.
Yeah.
I have zero perspective on this. I've only ever seen YouTube documentaries, and it looks like it's tough. So
Oh,
go
dude.
ahead.
My first job was to fix trucks. I hated it.
Okay.
I absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it, even though my recruiter, I remember calling him. It's like, "Hey, man, why did you give me this job?" It's like, "I hate it." He's like, "Bro, you said you wanted this, this, and this." I was like, "I know what I said. This sucks."
Right.
He's like, he laughed at me because he realized that I wasn't blaming him. And I was like, "This sucks.
Mm-hmm.
You should have made me an infantryman." But in hindsight, it was perfect because it gave me a lot of room to grow. I got to go to, first of all, I went to Iraq. I went to the Philippines, which is really funny. That story with the ball cap, and the first place that I saw EOD techs was the same place in the Philippines. So it was like full circle in my whole career, like separated by 14 years. It was awesome. But when I went in that job, we were in a MEU, an expeditionary unit. Dude, it was just the kind of place that, like, just get it done. Just do the work.
Right.
I got NJP, actually, dialing back, I got NJP'd Article 15 for having a female in the barracks
Mm-hmm.
when I was in the schoolhouse, and that was kind
There
of
you go.
lame. Yeah. So I got in trouble right at the beginning. And climbing the Marine Corps, when I got back, I got to deploy to Iraq, and as a Mortar T mechanic. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, it was terrible. We had way too many trucks, not enough people, and it was just turning wrenches nonstop. But I feel that what happened there is I got a ton of responsibility that I was not ready for.
Right.
But I was like, I had to run this place. There's no other option. And in hindsight, I realized I was there with a peer of mine that was better mechanic than I was. And now I realize that our leadership saw me as more responsible or less of a troublemaker than him.
Gotcha.
So they gave me the position, but funny enough, he got exactly what he wanted. He was on the trucks, driving around, doing the job,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a better time at the end all be all. So
Gotcha.
after that, I went to EOD school and I went to Hawaii, but I didn't see any EOD while I was in Iraq. And I think that it was part of what I needed, right? I needed to mature, which even at every stage of my career until I went to my duty station in Japan, it was like a whole step of like, I need to mature. And then when I showed up to Japan, I felt that I had hit in stride, that not that I still didn't need to mature, but I was at the point that like, I know I'm good enough. I know what I suck at. If I stay in this competence circle, I'm gonna crush people. And I did
Right.
really well. I had a really good time. My dudes got to have a really good time. And again, there's crappy experiences that I needed, right? Like, I'll never forget loading food into the ship. Absolutely terrible. Being stuck on
Mm-hmm.
ship, not being able to go to Liberty because something stupid happened. Terrible. So there's a series of things, and you get lucky in the Marine Corps. You get lucky in the military. Most of us have done something that we probably shouldn't have, or been at the wrong place and nobody noticed, and wrong place
Right.
in the wrong time, but somehow nobody noticed, and you're like, how did I get away with that?
Don't
It's
know how I did that.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
How did I not get in trouble for that? And I think that I'm not going to say that I realized that I knew. I'm saying the things I'm saying now is all in hindsight, right? Because then I just kept getting punched in the face, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I figured it out. It wasn't. I wish I would have had the mindset of like, it's supposed to be this challenging, you know.
Right.
And I mean, I'm twice divorced. I got divorced right after my first combat deployment, my first Afghan deployment as an EOD tech. I got my second divorce after leaving Japan. You know, that was really challenging for me. Like, while I enjoyed the military, like the whole divorce part, that was really hard. I've struggled with it a lot, and it's taken me time to accept that I needed those things to get me where I am now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting you bring up relationships, right? And without, you can share as much as you're comfortable sharing. But what do you think? I guess from your perspective, do you think that there's anything that you could have done better in those situations? For the people listening, like maybe if they're trying to prevent something like that from happening, or was it just kind of one of those situations where it's like it's not good for anybody here?
No, I think it would totally have been prevented. I think the first thing is, the reality is most of us get married too young.
Definitely.
Most of us do. I'm not going to tell anybody to not do it, but most of us get
Right.
married too young. Many people choose wrong. I believe I chose right both times. But then it's the point that we are not ready to improve, right? We're not ready to
Yeah.
improve and go into that seat of like, I am the man of this household. And generally speaking, you notice the people that are having a good time, that they're enjoying the relationship. But then there's
Right.
the men that are like succeed in relationship. They like carry it like a rock. They're like, this is
Yeah.
my burden. This family's my burden, and I need to
Right.
learn to carry it. Right.
Right.
Which are obviously the first few years are terrible, but eventually you figure it out. You know, it's
Yeah.
and if you look at it that way, it's much better. I didn't grow fast enough in my two relationships. My second relationship was with a female service member, and I was not much. I was not. I didn't give it the due respect, and I didn't give her the things that she needed. I think that, and I'm not. There's also blame on her side, but I try to focus on what I did wrong. Right? I don't want to. There's not that I don't want to put it out there, but they carry their own weight, right? I'm trying to fix me, which was much
Absolutely.
what I left the second divorce. When I was getting my second divorce, my whole thought process was, how can I be a better man, not how can I save this relationship. And in
Definitely.
turn, now I'm on a third relationship. We haven't gotten married, but it's so funny, like I see it totally different. Like, I got things to do for the family. I have my responsibilities for the family. Every single action that I take should benefit the family. And the things that don't benefit the family, there has to be very intentional as to why not. And it can be something as
Yeah.
simple as like, how many hours of TV am I going to watch? Does this really move the
Hmm.
family forward? Yes or no?
Right.
If it's no, no big deal, but be intentional about it, right? I think that too many of us are unintentional about those actions, right? Too many guys drink too much. Too many guys play too many video games. Too many guys watch too much football. And that's quality time, which is
Right.
funny. They say, I wish I had more time with my family. But then when they have the time off, they go spend it playing video games, watching TV, and drinking instead of time
Definitely.
with their family.
Yeah.
So that now it's an unintentional use of time with the little time that you have. and then they just choose to blame the military because they don't have time. I was like, that didn't add up, you know? So
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, that would say those are the biggest lessons that I got. And well, if you choose right, just love them for real, really hard. And it's going to work out if you do all these things. You know, we chose them, but then it's like we're doing it for trying it out, right? Too many people get married and divorced, and it's like you're just trying something out.
Yeah, it was definitely a big try before you buy culture in America, I think. And you mentioned choosing well. So what do you think? What do you think went into this decision compared to the last two partners that you had? Like, what's different in your opinion, and how do they complement you better?
So this girl, what's different is that I think we're going the same way,
Okay.
right? With my first relationship, we were so young that we didn't know where we were going.
Right.
You know, so right after the divorce, I went to MARSOC. So sorry, I was an EOD tech. Right before the divorce, I went to MARSOC. At the same, when she became a speech language pathologist, right? So that first few years, she was in residency. So I think that we were going separate ways, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't know where we were going.
Mm-hmm.
My second relationship, she was a pilot. She wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be an EOD tech. And I don't think that we were able to, neither one of us was able to sacrifice enough to get in line parallel with our futures.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that is a big thing to choosing well. Obviously, there's a financial aspect. There's a lot of people talking about this. I don't know if you've seen Cody Sanchez. She's married to a Navy SEAL. She speaks about it a
Oh,
lot.
yes. Yep.
Yeah. She's like, choose your partner right. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people talk about that because it's going to be your most expensive and most beneficial relationship, financially, spiritually, mentally. And it's a lot more than just the future, right? But way too many guys are married to women that are lazy, that don't,
Right.
let's say, this is I'm not saying that all women are lazy, but if you marry a woman that is lazy and then you take her to Japan where she cannot get a job,
Mm-hmm.
you just create a chaos, right?
Right.
So
It's an unforced error.
right. Unforced error, right? And then the other part is, let's say, if we are lazy and the woman is super clean, and then you take them to Japan or you take them to the military, now all eyes are on you. Then we feel criticized, we feel brought down, and then you're like, you come back from the field, and she's like, "Oh, we're gonna mow the lawn," and you're like, "I don't want to mow the lawn.
I'm
I want to go
tired.
sleep. I'm tired." So
Yeah.
snowball effect of problems, right? So with this girl, the difference is that we're in sync. So her and I do our businesses together. We're doing the business together. But like, for example, I'll be on meetings. Like I have meetings back to back to back to back to back. And I know that at some point of the night, food is just going to appear.
That's the best.
Right. But that's the
Yeah.
deal that her and I worked out because she knows I need food.
Right.
You do less meetings, please. I'll keep doing meetings.
Definitely.
But then, like, if I have a cancellation, I go downstairs and I do the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We got maids. Like, I'm a firm believer. One of the best expenses that a family can do is just get a maid, especially if you have a stay-at-home wife. Get a maid.
Okay.
Because then she has time for the kids. She has times for you, right? And she's not stressing with these things. And I'm not saying, you know, like in California, I found maids for $130 every 2 weeks. That's not backbreaking. That is better than drinking, right?
Yeah.
And the outcome is, dude, I haven't cleaned my bathrooms in 10 years.
Wow.
I love that because it just gets done.
Yeah.
And I don't see it as an expense. I see it as it's my time.
An improvement on your life. Yeah. You can buy back your time.
Buying back my time. Exactly. There's a whole book about that. I don't know if you've read it.
I haven't. No, I've heard of it. I haven't read it though.
Book, I have it on my Kindle. Excellent. Buy back your time. So
buy back your time. Add it to your library right now.
You have to. So, and for example, that guy takes it to a whole nother level. I'm gonna go down this tangent since I went down the maids. That guy doesn't fill up his cars with gasoline.
Right.
He doesn't cook. If you send him an email, if you grab that book, it has his name at gmail.com. You write him an email. You'll have a response within 10 minutes to an hour from his assistant.
Holy shit. Wow.
Dude, you should try it out. Write him an email
Okay.
and be like, hey, do you have your SOP? I can ask is like a house manager SOP.
Mm-hmm.
They'll send you this whole SOP.
That's awesome.
And then like virtual assistant SOP, our executive assistant SOP. So this guy figured out, is it worth, and again, it's not worth for everybody. That's not what he's implying. There's an actual calculation of how much you should spend on this. But at a certain point, it's better for you to have a maid. In his case, it's more advantageous for him to spend somebody filling up his cars than him doing it. And this is how I explain it to everybody. Do you have kids by any chance, Chase?
I just had a baby. Yep. We just had our son.
Congratulations. Do you want to play baseball with your son or football when he grows up?
Absolutely.
Okay. Can we agree that most kids just need about 10 minutes of throwing the ball?
Yeah, I can agree.
That's the time that we spend filling up our cars.
Yeah.
So in his mind, he's like, why would I fill up my car? I want to spend 10 minutes with my kids.
Right.
Total gold, right? But you have to see it that way. And that's something that I've now, again, the maids thing, I got maids because I have roommates, and I was like, I don't trust any of you guys to clean the house, so we're going to get maids. And I've kept it up, right? I charged everybody. I was like, hey, we have maids. It's $30 a piece. Pay up, sucker. But now it gives me my time back. So I encourage people to do it. Like I have a friend, the guy, husband's an officer, wife, stay-at-home mom, 2 kids. She wants to make money. She's like, how do I make more money? And I was like, get a maid. What do you mean? Yeah. I was like, those are X many hours that you spend cleaning the house that you could work.
Right.
I hate to tell you, it's really that simple. The cost of a maid to the amount of money you're going to make in a business is totally worth it. And they were like, I never thought of it that way. They got it, bro, happy. Yeah. Immediate change in the relationship. If anything, go get a maid and spend those 2 hours with your wife on a date, in a beach, or in a park. Guarantee she'll be very happy.
Heck yeah.
Immediately.
I think once you can kind of change your mind on like how you view your time as an investment, and then also how you view money too. Like money, best book I've ever read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That fundamentally changed my brain when it came to money. But time and money, right?
Yeah.
Like as far as time goes, recently got married. We had our first kid. And before, when I was single, my wife hates this, but she was like, why do you have your groceries delivered? Or why do you, order your groceries online ahead of time? It's like, because I hate being in the grocery store. I hate wasting my time. There's something that I'm trying to accomplish here. I had no idea what it was at the time, but I knew that my time was better spent somewhere else. So it's like, do I really want to walk down the aisles? Or do I want to have someone else do it for me? And now she does it for me, but that's a whole nother part of the relationship. So she likes grocery shopping and I don't, and it works out.
And that's very complimenting, right? So you bought back your time by fortunately choosing a partner that enjoys doing the thing that you hate. Great.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Now you guys, go ahead. Sorry.
I know. I just love the fact that you mentioned, that you guys kind of know each other's needs too, because that's huge. When you're in a relationship and you're both trying to achieve something for the relationship, knowing what the other person needs and being able to make those sacrifices is huge. So like same situation that you're in, if I am just engulfed in podcasting or making content for, my fitness page, if I'm doing something like that, it takes up a ton of time. And so it's like, I don't want to have to think about all those little things like cleaning the bathroom or making dinner for myself. And she fills the gap because, she knows that her journey is in a different spot than what mine is. And I think that she expects me to be able to fill that gap as well, which I gladly will. But I think that's super important, having someone that understands you and knows that this is the path that you're on and this is the time that you need to buy back for yourself.
Yeah. And if I can give anybody another thought with that, is that if your wife doesn't work, pay her 50% of your paycheck.
Right.
Like straight up pay her. Open her own bank account and then pay her.
Basically pay her that anyway.
Right. But think about it. Then at that point, if we start paying our partner 50%, let's say after TSP, after deductions, 50% of what we
Right.
get paid is yours. At that point, we start thinking she is of value. Why am I paying this
Definitely.
value? Right? And she
Definitely.
starts saying, oh, I need to earn my keep.
Mhm.
So now it's twofold, right? And I mean, you may be paying just for her to raise your kids, but this is a big gripe of mine, is that too many, I'm gonna say men because it's mostly men, are
Mhm.
working and the wives are not working, and then there's only one retirement plan.
Right.
So great. So what happens when you get divorced? Of course she's gonna come and take everything.
Yeah.
She had nothing. So,
Right.
but then in that point, if their separation starts, like again, and I'm not saying to have totally separate bank accounts, you literally can have it together, but create the habit as like 50% is yours, or better to take another layer deep. If it's 100%, 80s for the family, 10 and 10, whatever.
Gotcha.
But create a habit of paying your wife because she is working her ass off for you, whether it's cleaning
Mhm.
the house, whether it's maintaining, whether it's kids, whether it's blah. So, for example, my girlfriend, when we got her to quit her job, we knew that I was going to make the majority of the money,
Right.
but she was going to quit $130,000 job a year. I was like, listen, you help, I'll do more meetings. You help me with food, shopping, blah. I'll pay you. I'll take care of everything. So she now
Yeah.
knows that there is no scarcity of money, and that her cooking is part of the activities necessary to run this business. You
Right.
know, it's like an activity that makes it happen. And it's just, and again, it's just a mindset thing. It's not really an amount thing. It's just how you think about the money.
Yeah. I think it's really cool how people and I'll just speak from male and female perspectives, right? Because it's typically what people fall back into when
Mhm.
they are allowed to kind of fall back into masculinity and femininity. Um, but yeah, you mentioned like when people view it as a team effort, it makes it that much easier for the man to follow his role and for the female to follow her role. And sometimes it might be different depending on the household, but you know, I think you and I have very paralleling situations. So it's really nice to see that and to hear that. It's very refreshing. So, guys, I think it's super important to pick a partner that is all in on you. And you know, kind of to what you said about paying her back, right?
Mhm.
If you meet a woman who understands you, she seeks to understand you, and she is already sacrificing things to help you along your journey, even if you're not succeeding, you should definitely pay her back. And it might not necessarily be actual dollars, but for me, the way I viewed this was like, I'm going to reward my girlfriend by making her my fiance, and
Mhm.
then by making her my wife, and then by making her the mother of my children. Those are all really, really big milestones in a man's life. And I think that she understands how big of an honor it is to hold those positions. So, I think that's something that's super important. I'm glad you brought that up.
Totally.
Um,
Yeah.
so you mentioned that you guys are doing businesses together.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, we don't have to talk about, that per se, but
Yeah.
let's talk about when you actually started building the financial enabler, right? Like,
Yeah.
what was the first thing that you started doing? Were you just making videos? Were you were you blogging? Were you helping people on the side? Like, how did that kind of turn into what it is now?
So it all started with Instagram. I just started making those videos.
Right.
And what I'll tell anybody is, you just got to start. They're supposed to suck, right? They're supposed to be really bad. You just got to start.
Yeah.
Just like a podcast, right? If you believe you have something to say, just say it. Just get to it.
Hmm.
And from that, it created traction, right? People started asking me more questions. People wanted one-on-ones. People wanted to understand how to use a product. And I have a whole mindset on money, and I put it in military terms. So it all started because I created those videos. I was just putting out
Hmm.
content. I've created the Substack ever since, and it's grown. But the whole premise started with me just want to give them value, and I stick to it. I don't have any plans to start selling anything on social media because it's just not a value. I want people to come organically to talk. If I have a way
Right.
to make you more money, I will. To the point that We just launched the school, and it's called Task Force Finance. We're charging not so that we make money. We're charging because if people don't pay, they don't value it. Nobody
Exactly.
values free. So I was like, $3 a month. I mean, it doesn't get any
Right.
cheaper than that. But you commit to your money. You can cancel anytime. I don't care. But I want people to commit to themselves. And that's the other thing is that, like, that journey allowed me to then start meeting a bunch of people, whether it was financial experts, business, and now, especially, I love my Instagram feed. It's just full of gold. Like, I
Definitely.
have no bullshit in my Instagram feed. It's all like the business, it's the mindset, it's the spiritual. It's like I go to my Instagram and I can scroll, and I'm learning, and it's created this idea that it's worth my time when I do scroll. Like, I'm
Definitely.
not doom scrolling, right? Obviously, it drives me because then if I see a guy that is making money or growth or whatever, it makes me want to go get to it. Uh,
Right.
so I just started doing the videos, and I started at Teachable. That didn't work out. I didn't want to do that. And then I found a way in the business. Now I'm able to get companies to pay me for the time that I spend with people. So it all works out. I can do the one-on-ones without them having to pay me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, what were your first initial steps when you started a business? Like, was it to file an LLC? Like, let's talk a little bit more specifically, right? Because,
Mhm.
you know, like I mentioned at the beginning of this is a wealth of knowledge for the listeners, but it's also a wealth of knowledge for me, right? Like, selfishly, meeting awesome people like you who have that perspective of maybe 10, 15 years ahead of me, right?
Mhm.
Like, knowing what mistakes you made and what you would have done better is very valuable. So I'll give you my situation, right?
Yeah.
I have an LLC that I started,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to figure out how to best leverage it while I'm in the military, and then also as I start building that business. And I'll go as far as to say it's just an investment company, and then we'll leave it
Hmm.
at that. And I'll let you run with it.
So I think that uh, I think people are rushing to open LLCs. They
Yeah.
want an LLC without having a business. You need a business, then you
Mhm.
need an LLC. They believe that with the LLC comes all this magical tax write-offs and benefits. But if
Right.
there's no actual business activity and a necessary and ordinary expense, there's nothing. So I started with my business with just doing it on Teachable,
Hmm.
right? Because I wanted to create a legit way to have a transaction of money. Eventually, I departed to that. And I didn't make the LLC until, man, almost 2 years into it, where then I realized after speaking with some tax planners, it was like, okay, you're at that time. Do it now, right?
Right.
Because there's no point, kind of like I always say that you can write off your leave. You can, but you got to have over the standard deduction, blah, 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 right? A certain amount of expenses. So I waited until I was over the standard deduction to then open or close to open the LLC. But once the LLC, then I was able to put more expenses on it because I had a business credit card, I had a business bank account, and I organized my life that now, let's say I go to Costa Rica, it's a business expense. It's a business trip. Not
Hmm.
every business can do that, right? With mine, I can. And that's what I try to encourage people to find a flexible business. The easiest example I explain it to people is that when was the last time your dentist took you out on lunch? Well,
Yeah.
never. That doesn't happen.
Right.
I can take my clients on lunch any day. When
Definitely.
was the last time a dentist traveled to Costa Rica with his board of directors? Rarely.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
do it whenever I want. Just take my board of directors. We have a trip. It's an important part of the business. But again, we have to have a tax planning strategy into that. So the most important activity that needs to happen to start doing this is come up with a legitimate way to give value to people. You
Hmm.
come up with that, you'll start making money, and then you'll be able to have necessary and ordinary expenses. Then you can jump into the LLC. And all
Gotcha.
this stuff on social media, go get an S corp. No, don't do that. Most people get it too
Right.
soon. So it's like I always tell people, come up with what you want to do, how you want to make the money, and then we can dive into it another layer deep. But and then we go
Okay.
into business finance, which that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Do you leverage your home as an office?
I do. Home office expense, the computer purchase. I bought my truck specifically for that, for the
Nice.
Section 179. Um, what is it? My meals with my business partners and clients, all that is written
Hmm.
off. I always get Wi-Fi on flights because of most of my travels business. I write that off. So yeah, it's
Nice.
it's just learning to play the game.
Yeah. Um, what would you say that the, I guess, prerequisite income would be for like someone who has a side business that wants to start leveraging an LLC? Like, obviously, you sat down with some tax experts at some point,
Mhm.
and they're like, "Okay, it's time to go." Would you say it's like 10K a month and up, or is it once you pass like a smaller threshold than that?
So I should know this, but I don't know it because I just leave this to my tax planner. So
No worries.
is once you're over the standard deduction. So for example, the standard deduction for 2024, where is it? I think it was $29,000. Yeah, the standard deduction is married filing jointly is 23. I can find it while we're talking. So once you're over that, then you should really be leveraging the itemized deduction,
Gotcha.
right? So for example, married filing jointly is 29 to the 100. That's 2024. 2025 is going to be 30,000. So once you're over the standard deduction, you then can start doing itemized deduction. But it's
Hmm.
the things that you got to deduct. And this is what I don't get. I don't really care because I just leave it to my
Right.
tax planner. I don't quite have total understanding is how much of that is expenses, what percentages, I don't know. I'll leave it to my tax planner. But once you're able to write off over the 30K, you're worth it. But this is the other part. You have to learn. So for example, my first year in business, I did not go over the standard deduction. No business write-offs. The next year, I went over it, business
Hmm.
write-offs. But I had already created the habit of the receipts, having a profit and loss, blah, 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 keeping my everything, tracking everything. So it's a matter of organization. So for example, super common business, people either open a shirt company or let's say they want to do
Right.
plaques or whatever. Great. You
Right.
start the business, you buy the equipment, you start selling. You don't make enough money, no standard deduction, no big deal. But you get in the habit. Next year, you buy more material. Oh, all of a sudden you can start writing it off. You're in the clear, and then it just starts taking off because then you can do things with kids, and so on and
Gotcha.
so forth. Right?
Okay. So it kind of builds on itself. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily something that you have to kind of get into the weeds on. I feel
No.
like I've seen a ton of those videos where it's like, if your S corp owns the LLC, you can pay the S corp and vice versa. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
And
Like,
yeah, and to your point, most tax planners don't suggest an S corp until you're over $50,000, give or take, because
right.
below that it may not be worth it. So I am, I'm waiting for my tax planner to say like, okay, we're going to S corp status,
Gotcha.
right?
Okay.
So once he says go, we go, right? But that's why I always tell people, and this is really funny. People love getting discount tax planning,
Yeah.
but service members want top tier fires. That doesn't make
Right.
sense. They're the same thing,
Right.
right? If you want top tier service, it's not going to be cheap. An
Definitely.
F-18 is not cheap. So a good tax planner is not cheap, right?
Right.
We all need a really good tax planner? No, probably not. But once you do, you shouldn't be cutting the dollars. Like I have a friend, great business, pays $200 for his tax lady. And I'm like, bro, you're getting screwed every year. It's like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, then change.
Why aren't you doing anything
What
about
are
it?
you doing about it? Yeah, just go get somebody
Gotcha.
that's good. I have a long list of people to recommend.
Yeah.
So I stick to military principles, right? If you want a good asset, you go get the good asset, and don't see yourself as the expert. Go get the expert to do that job.
Gotcha. I'll definitely have to go with you offline and
Yeah,
iron some stuff out.
for sure.
Um, so yeah, bottom line up front, guys, provide value first, provide value at scale next, and then learn how to get those tax deductions by leveraging your LLC.
Hmm.
So don't have to jump in all at once, but definitely it can add up very quickly. So make sure that you're staying on top of it initially, knowing where every dollar goes, keeping track of things, keeping virtual records, and then hand it off to somebody that is paid to do that job.
Oh yeah.
Because ultimately, I don't know if you feel the same way, Jamie, but I want to focus on my mission and not the ins and nuances of the business per se. I want to bring value with what I initially started bringing value with.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I want to do none of that. I just
Yeah.
want to make money, right? Again, hire people to do that. And the quicker you do it, the better. My mentor taught me this. The moment that you think you need somebody for X, it's already too late.
Right.
You should have
Right.
done it
You don't
already.
want to let it get out of hand.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that you had an academy or a school.
Yeah. So it's just
Yeah.
the website SKOOL, right? So if you go to the website
Oh,
SKOOL, yeah,
okay. You have a community on school.
you have
Gotcha.
a community on school. Yeah. That's
And
it.
what is that? What is that community called again?
It's called Task Force Finance. I can give you
Okay.
the link. It's called
Yeah.
Task Force
100%.
Finance. We do a lot of long content there, long form content, and we're going to be expanding it. I have two guys that are really good that add to that. They haven't been as active, so I slowly build up on it. But what I've noticed, the biggest value is people coming in and adding their information, right? Giving value to other people, and it's been really good. Unfortunately, most service members hyper focus on real estate, and I'm like, man, it's just a small part of it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Tell me about your real estate experience. Like, have you been in there in the space for a while, or is it something that you're kind of starting to get into as you
No,
progress?
fortunately, I bought my first house really early in the military. I've owned I've owned 6 homes so far,
Okay.
right? I still own 3 of them, and I believe in it. I just think that people hyper focus on it. They're like, "Oh, it's the greatest investment," and I was like, "I can show you how they're charged that why it's not."
Right.
Is it really good for depreciation? Sure. Do I believe in real estate? Yes. Has it sucked sometimes? Yeah. I have a property that my neighbors happen to be lawyers, and it's really annoying, right? Uh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
buddy of mine. He's a lieutenant here in New Mexico, and he has a quadplex, and he's like, dude, this is terrible. This sucks. So
Hmm.
it's not all easy, and it's not as lucrative as people make it out to be, right?
Yeah.
Especially not at the beginning. Um, I like to think that obviously the advantage is that you can lend a lot of money against it. But I believe that if people just started doing the small things and they were more diversified, like people, I always run into kids like, I can't wait to buy my house. And I was like, are you buying any stocks? Do you have life insurance? Do you have a high yield savings account? They're like, no. And I was like, then why you want to go buy a house? There's all these other
Right.
things you got to do too. So I really dive into that. But real estate is good. My goal is to hopefully get my girlfriend to be a real estate professional, the 750 hours, so we can massively write off against it.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be super cool. So, as a real estate professional, what exactly would she be doing?
I don't want to do it. I want her to do it.
Right. What
But
would she be doing?
I actually have no idea. I don't know what
Okay.
it entails. I just know that once you cross a 750 hours as a real estate professional, the tax benefits are much better. But
Gotcha.
I haven't
Okay.
dove into it, what it entails exactly, because at this
Right.
point of our business, it's just not worth it. But
Okay.
let's say once we buy our next house, I'm gonna ask my tax planner, what would she have to do in order to do this? Right. And then we're
Gotcha.
gonna start strategizing. It's just not worth it because they have to be, I think if I recall, it's 750 hours a year in the real
Hmm.
estate business. So if you think about it, 750 divided by 52, that is still 14 hours a week.
Right.
So it's a lift, right? 15
Hmm.
hours a week is a lift. So we always juggle, is it worth it to get all those write-offs and for you to stop doing the business or what? So again, it's not as clear cut, but it does have a lot of benefits to be able to write off against other things. So we're going to explore it
Gotcha.
once we get there. Mhm.
Okay. So, do you recommend that people use the VA loan if they have access to it, or should they go like a different route, like an FHA or a DSCR loan? Like, what has been your experience with that?
So the DSCR can be good. It all depends,
Hmm.
right? A lot of people, I think that too many young investors shouldn't be doing DSCR because they're like, oh, I can't wait to buy this house, but can you afford
Right.
a water heater? No, you can't.
Right.
So you shouldn't do it, right?
Management costs.
Management costs. And people, even when you buy a property, people always forget what is total cost ownership. So what is this total cost? And that includes your kids painting on the walls. That is part of the total cost, and people don't account for that. Because the moment that your kid paints on the wall, that means that you got to go buy primer and paint and tape. And then you got to account for your time. Nobody accounts for that. So should they use the VA loan? I think so. Is right now a good time? I don't know. All my mentors are saying don't buy.
Right.
So it all depends, right? Should people buy, for example, do I think is it always good to buy in around military towns? Yeah. Yeah, it could be. But the problem is, can you sustain it with your BAH? That's normally my threshold. Can you handle the cost of the house plus utilities with BAH? If not, then go rent. Because people like jump in too fast and then they're like stuck. I don't think an FHA is normally worth it, especially compared to the VA. But for example, a single E6, I had a friend. He was a single E6 and then E7 in Marsac. He moved every year for 4 years that he was in North Carolina.
Wow.
But again, he's single. He didn't care. He lived out of a shoebox, right?
Yeah.
He left with 4 properties. Awesome. But find me a wife that will agree to that.
They're not very common nowadays. So
they're not. And for that matter, they shouldn't be, right? They're to nest. Right. They're going to build they're going to take care of our home. So in my mind, they shouldn't agree to that. So like I couldn't, like my girlfriend and I were going to move out of this house after a year being in it, but already we're like, we don't like this anymore, right? Yeah. We're moving because we want to change cities, but at the same time, it's like, how do we find home, right? And there's a lot of other factors. So normally when people come up to me about, I want to buy real estate, I was like, okay, for what? How are you going to do it? What's your plan? But going back to when I bought my house in California, I bought a huge house. I had left Hawaii. I was freshly divorced and I was still thinking about big house.
Yeah.
And I remember buying the house and walking in the first day and I was like, oh my God, why did I buy this? I'm in trouble. And I was like,
I can't afford this.
I can't afford this. And fast forward the next 6 years, I had 4 roommates or 3 roommates. It was the only way. But then, like going back to the other thing, I had to convince him to get maids. I had to be super aggressive at finding people when someone moved out. It just came with all this little annoyances, right? That in hindsight could have been better spent elsewhere. So you live and you learn, right? But I think that people are too quick to buy a house nowadays because it's not as advantageous as it was when we were younger.
Yeah. There's so many different ways to make money and save money, and coming from 2 people right now that have done the house hacking method, there's benefits to it, but there's also a lot of headache and heartache that can come with it too, especially if you have legitimate friendships and people that are living with you and you're forced to be a landlord. I've had experiences where I was forced to cross over that friendship line and become a landlord, and it's tough, man, because sometimes you're like, I'm gonna have people escorted out of my house, or they're not paying rent, or just all these little things that happen, and it's like, is it worth that to have a home or just a house, right? Like, are you in a home or are you in a house? So having the ability to sit down, write out all of those costs, right? The emotional costs, the financial costs, it's very important. Underwriting is a very, very important skill.
Yeah.
Trying to think of where I was going with that. But yeah, house hacking is not all that.
It's not.
It can be a great solution for some people, but it really just depends on the situation. How much money would you recommend that somebody have saved up before they start making investments or exploring what the options are?
Oh, man, that's it's broader than that, because let's say it all depends on the income to expense ratio, right? So,
Right.
and I don't want to say that there's an exact amount, but let's say I deal with a family, right? And they are not investing, but they have 1 month's emergency fund, but they have a surplus of $2,000. It's
Hmm.
like, great. Maybe you can start saving $500 towards your short term in a high yield savings and $500 towards long term, right? So then it's how we strategize all this and how much you want to pay in taxes. I'm really big. I apply a lot of tools to not pay taxes. So I explain all these things to people, but it all depends on the person. Some people want more for now, like, oh, I want to buy a house. So maybe you need more in a high yield savings. Oh, I want to buy a house in 3 years. I was like, well, then
Hmm.
maybe 3 to 5 years, then maybe life insurance is a good option. But do you have a Roth IRA? No. Do you have TSP? Okay, how much? Maybe we got to lower it. So it's all properly allocating it based on their goals. But I'd shoot for in service members 2 to 3. I think 2 years is enough. 2 months is enough of emergency fund because you're not going to have a medical emergency that you cannot afford, and the odds of losing housing are very slim. So
Right.
2 months is enough, but we can start investing before we hit that threshold, assuming there's no debt. If there's debt, then other things come in. So I try to apply all my tools for the person, but it all depends on their circumstance.
Gotcha. So you mentioned that people can start investing before they get to that point, just kind of as a way to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
What investment vehicles do you recommend for someone who's in the military, or maybe just somebody who's a young person that doesn't have any traction built up yet? Oh, hold on, Jamie. I think your speaker went out.
Oh, dang it. Is that better? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you great now. Oh, now it went out. Dang.
There we go. Okay, cool. I don't know what just happened. That was really weird. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're
Okay,
good.
cool. So for service members, obviously an individual brokerage account is huge.
Hmm.
Buy some stocks, ETFs. And then we would go to, they got to have a TSP up to 5%, a
Okay.
Roth IRA. So that's where it goes with investments. I must draw a line because it's not an investment. Then there's permanent life insurance where you can grow your money tax free. Using all of those at the right ways is crucial because
Gotcha.
all of them offer different benefits. So, for example, Roth IRA, tax free growth for life, awesome, but it doesn't offer access to 0% loans or index loans like life insurance does. Roth IRAs grow a lot, but is also cheaper than TSP, but Roth IRAs don't match. So we got to use
Okay.
all of these tools at the right time and strategy in order to maximize an individual's wealth.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, cool. We are just over an hour now. I don't
Cool.
want to take up too much of your time. We'll do a little speed round of questions, and
Okay.
then Jamie, I think we'll definitely be doing like a part two on this
Cool.
conversation because there's so much that I probably haven't even thought to ask you yet, and we can obviously talk offline too.
For
But
sure.
yeah, let's get right into it. So, what is your favorite book that you've ever read out of all of them?
Favorite book that I've ever read, it would have to be The Go Giver. The Go
The
Giver.
Go Giver.
Mm-hmm.
What's that one about?
It's about the five stratospheric laws of success. The
Okay,
five laws of stratospheric success, which is the law of value, law of compensation, law of influence, law of receptivity, and there's another one that I cannot see because I have it in the background of my phone. But yeah, and law of authenticity. So that's a
gotcha.
key book for me. Mhm.
The Go Giver. Okay, cool. Do you have a favorite coin that you've been given during your time in the Marine Corps?
Ooh, the Marine Corps is so bad about coins.
Are they?
Dude, we're
I didn't
terrible.
know that.
Dude, we suck at it. I think no, I don't connect with my coins that much, but
Okay,
I do um I do love the one that I got from Marsoc. Like, the first
yeah,
rated battalion because it doesn't exist anymore where it was. So I think that's the one that I would put on that list.
those are always awesome, man.
Yeah.
And then let's see, let's do another one. Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show? Oh
Yeah.
man. Um,
For someone that doesn't watch that much TV,
yeah, yeah.
what's your favorite TV
I
show?
do have I do watch TV when I my girlfriend and I would say Ted Lasso.
That's a great show. I love that show.
Yeah, Ted
Guys.
Lasso is very feel good, but the guy's a good leader.
Yes.
It's like, I mean, it doesn't matter where you are, just go do life like Ted. You'll be just fine.
Yeah, one of my battalion commanders actually had the believe sign in
Yeah.
his garage. I thought that was so funny. I was like, man, you're a cool guy.
Yeah.
All right. So, guys, this has been our very first live episode of the Super
Yo,
Bros podcast. Jaime, the financial enabler, he pulled through. We got it figured out. We got him on live, and I am super excited that we got to have you on, man. It's been an
for
honor,
sure.
and we'll definitely continue this conversation down the road.
For sure, man. I look forward to it. This was a great time.
All right, Jaime.
All right,
Thanks
man.
again.
Later.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening.